Tangena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shirupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tang Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Shah Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Bhavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratashe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanosute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpatarorvyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namostate Vyasa Vishal Buddhe Fullarvindayata Patra Netre Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vitreka Paneye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gita Amrita Duhe Namaha. We're studying chapter 4, Bhagavad-Gita, Transcendental Knowledge. Yesterday's class we discussed verses 11 to 15. Now in verse number 16 and onwards, Krishna is going to talk about different types of yagyas or sacrifices. And if one engages in these yagyas, then there is birth of transcendental knowledge. By executing yagyas, one gets benefited by having transcendental knowledge. So understanding karma on the platform of knowledge, which means engaging in one's duties, different activities based on the knowledge or on the platform of knowledge. So you act, but you act with knowledge. Krishna didn't tell Arjuna to stop fighting. Krishna, in fact, encouraged Arjuna to continue fighting. But then he encouraged Arjuna to fight on the platform of knowledge. Mm. So that's the point that we have to execute our duties, but we have to execute them not in an ignorant fashion, but being situated in knowledge. That's what Krishna is making very clear to Arjuna. You fight, you are a Kshatriya, you kill, but then you do it with knowledge of this self, of the super self, of this material world, all that. Fine. So when we engage in such duties, then those duties, execution of those duties, they further strengthen our realization of transcendental knowledge. It's like that, you know. It supports you on the path of self-realization. It facilitates some further realization. Okay. Now, um, here again, Krishna will also talk about something which he has mentioned before, which is karma, vikarma, and akarma. We know what is meant by uh, karma, vikarma, and akarma. Karma means pious activity. It gives you some good material result. Vikarma is sinful activity. It gives you bad material result. And both of them, they lead to bondage. Whereas akarma is activity performed for the pleasure of God. It gives no bad or good material result, and it leads to liberation from material life. So Krishna is going to explain how our duties and activities can be promoted to the category of akarma, by engaging in those activities with knowledge. Fine. So that's the point, that you act and you still don't get bound. Hmm. This is something Krishna is explaining here. So we go to verse number 16. Kim karma kima karmeti kavayo apyatra mohitaha tatte karma pravikshyami yajñatva mokshase shubhat. Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. So Krishna is telling he will explain what is action and what is inaction. Okay. Action in Krishna consciousness has to be executed in accord with the examples of previous bona fide devotees. This is recommended in the 15th verse. Why such action should not be independent will be explained in the text to follow. To act in Krishna consciousness, one has to follow the leadership of authorized persons who are in a line of disciplic succession, as explained in the beginning of this chapter. The system of Krishna consciousness was first narrated to the sun god. The sun god explained it to his son Manu. Manu explained it to his son Ikshvaku, and the system is current on this earth from that very remote time. Therefore, one has to follow in the footsteps of previous authorities in the line of disciplic succession. Otherwise, even the most intelligent men will be bewildered regarding the standard actions of Krishna consciousness. For this reason, the Lord decided to instruct Arjuna in Krishna consciousness directly. Because of the direct instruction of the Lord to Arjuna, anyone who follows in the footsteps of Arjuna is certainly not bewildered. It is said that one cannot ascertain the ways of religion simply by imperfect experimental knowledge. Actually, the principles of religion can only be laid down by the Lord Himself. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranitam, Bhagavatam 6.3.19. No one can manufacture a religious principle by imperfect speculation. One must follow in the footsteps of great authorities like Brahma, Shiva, Narada, Manu, the Kumaras, Kapila, Prahlada, Bhishma, Shukdev Goswami, Yamaraj, Janak, and Bali Maharaj. By mental speculation, one cannot ascertain what is religion or self realization. Therefore, out of causeless mercy to his devotees, the Lord explains directly to Arjuna what action is and what inaction is. Only action performed in Krishna consciousness can deliver a person from the entanglement of material existence. So that is inaction, something which delivers us from entanglement of material existence. That is inaction. Mm. Everything else is an action because it uh, binds us, right, to material life. Okay, next verse. कर्मणो हि अपि बोधव्यं बोधव्यं च विकर्मणः अकर्मणश्च बोधव्यं गहना कर्मणो गतिः. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. So it's very difficult to understand these points of action, inaction. Hmm. So Krishna is explaining it to Arjuna to make it very clear. You see, anything you are pursuing in life, if something is your goal, you have to be really aware of what you are doing, right? What are the obstacles, how to achieve the goal. Then only you will be successful. It works in every field in which you want to prosper. Similarly, if someone wants to prosper in spiritual life, then he or she has to be aware of the spiritual technologies of what are the obstacles in spiritual life. You know, if one just blindly walks on the path of spirituality, then there are less chances that one will be successful. One should be very careful. The point is that. So here, that's why Krishna is making it very careful for Arjuna to understand, like what exactly helps you to get liberated from material life and what keeps you bound. Mhm. Because every single thing that Arjuna does, whether it's a physical action, it's a verbal action, it's a mental action, it is either helping Arjuna to get liberated or it is forcing Arjuna to become bound. You know, it's like that. So that's why Krishna is saying that you thoroughly understand what it is. Um, Purport. Srila Prabhupada now explains the same here. If one is serious about liberation, we'll read this. Tulasi Mataji, please read.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Pranam. If one is serious about liberation from material bondage, one has to understand the distinctions between action, inaction, and unauthorized actions. One has to apply oneself to such an analysis of action, reaction, and perverted actions because it is very difficult subject matter. To understand Krishna consciousness and action according to its modes, one has to learn one's relationship with the Supreme. That is, one who has learned perfectly knows that every living entity is an eternal servitor of the Lord, and that consequently, one has to act in Krishna consciousness. The entire Bhagavad-Gita is directed towards this conclusion. Any other conclusions against this consciousness and its attendant actions are vikarmas, or prohibited actions. To understand all this, one has to associate with authorities in Krishna consciousness and learn the secret from them. This is as good as learning from the Lord directly. Otherwise, even the most intelligent persons will be bewildered. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. In one of the lectures, Srila Prabhupada gave a very beautiful example. You know, sometimes the examples given by Srila Prabhupada are so simple, but at the same time, they make you understand the concept so nicely. You see, he spoke in a lecture in Bombay in 1974. The example is given of a boy flying a kite. You must have seen kite flying. Sometimes it seems that the kite is coming down, and sometimes it seems that the kite is going up, right? Someone observe sees only Someone observing sees only the boy pulling the string. So he's saying, uh, the boy is pulling the string, and but you know, in one case, the kite is going up, and the boy is still pulling the string, and the other case, the kite is coming down, and still the boy is pulling the string. Basically, the boy is doing the same thing, pulling the string, you know, right? But in some case, you'll see the kite is going up. In some case, you see the kite is coming down. So, Shilpa says, similarly, unless one is very intelligent, one cannot understand what is karma and akarma. That is the whole subject matter of Bhagavad Gita, which means how you do what you do, that will decide whether it is going to become karma or it's going to become akarma. To an external person observing you, it may look the same. It may exactly look the same, you know, but it's your consciousness that will decide whether it is karma or akarma. Just like, let's say, Arjuna heard the message of Bhagavad Gita from Krishna that we know. Okay. Some XYZ person is standing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra and observing Arjuna fight. Is also observing Duryodhana fight. He's also observing Karna fight. He's also observing Dronacharya fight, Bhishma Pitama fight. Will that person who is an observer be able to tell that Arjuna is fighting in divine consciousness and Duryodhana is fighting in mundane consciousness? Hmm? No, not necessarily. Because externally, if Duryodhana is showing anger and frustration, Arjuna is also showing anger and frustration. Right? Are you able to understand? So, externally, it exactly looks the same. But basically, it is my internal cultivation, my consciousness. That's the most important factor. So, that makes it either karma or that makes it akarma. Something which bounds me or something which liberates me. So, our acharyas, they explain something more interesting here. They say, what is karma and what is akarma? They say, when you perform an action where you have deliberation of whether it is sinful and pious, that means the mind is still in the material consciousness. Whether I'll be benefited by this action or I'll be materially, uh, what do you say, materially harmed by this action? Or is this materially correct or is this materially wrong? So, whether it is sinful or whether it is pious. If our intelligence is always calculating like that, then what you are going to do will be karma only. It has to be karma. Either it has to be good karma or it has to be bad karma. Hmm. And what is akarma? So, for akarma, what is the explanation given by them? So they say akarma is when you don't think about this and you just think that it's your duty and you're supposed to do it in a detached manner for the purpose of purification. Hmm. Of course, you don't do something sinful, you do the right thing only, but you're not calculating. Uh, you're not calculating whether it will give me happiness or not. No, you just do it. Then that leads to a karma. But when one is having this calculative intelligence, then whatever one does will be karma only. Mhm. Okay, let's read 18.
Prabhu, just one
Hare
question.
Krishna,
Yes, Mataji. One at a time.
Uh,
Yes,
Prabhu,
Arti.
nishkama akarma and nishkama karma are more or less like similar. I mean,
Akarma and Nishkam karma is same, Mataji. Similar.
okay. Thank you.
yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can I ask a question?
Yes, yes, Raj.
So, Prabhuji, you mentioned that if somebody is like thinking, right, specifically in those cases, it is definitely karma only, right? But majority of the people, I mean, do not even probably believe in karma. They do not think in those lines also, right?
Uh, it's not about thinking in those lines, basically. It's about having that intelligence which is very calculative about profit and loss.
Okay.
So when it is said that when that intelligence is deliberating on sinful activity or pious activity, the point that is being made is it's a calculative intelligence which is always thinking about personal profit, personal gain. And that everyone is doing anyway, either they believe in karma or they don't believe in karma.
Okay.
So anyone who does that is doing karma because one is having one's interest is vested in that, right?
That's it. Okay.
So that's why karma, it will become karma. Naturally, it will become karma,
Okay.
right? It will naturally become
Okay.
karma. So akarma, the consciousness of someone performing a karma is different. Is different. Not like this.
Okay. And day-to-day activities, uh, how do we, very difficult to get into the karma mode, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhu, it's very difficult. It is difficult. Therefore, this is something which used to be taught to someone right from early childhood.
Okay.
And then that person gets to see this, observe this, others doing it, imbibes it, and in one's life also does it. So for us who are so latecomers into this transcendental, science, it's very difficult to understand, first of all. Not to speak of apply, even understanding the concept is so difficult. Like, how do you do it?
Mm.
Isn't it? But
Yeah.
someone situated in that platform knows how to do it.
Okay.
And that's what Krishna is telling Arjuna to learn.
So will we be able to learn, Prabhuji, as part
We
of
will be
this?
able to learn. Definitely will be able to learn. For that, first of all, we need to have an eagerness to learn this thing.
Yes.
I tell you very honestly, there are so many of us who are practicing Krishna consciousness. We we still believe that somehow that I just have to chant my japa and I do my little bit of my sadhana. And if I do all that, then that is sufficient to become liberated from material life and go back home, back to Godhead. No, we think like that actually. And we strongly believe in that. That if we just follow this march, then we are sure we are going back home, back to God. Because Srila Prabhupada has promised that someone does this much, then he is going back home, back to God. She is going back home to God. Right? So Srila Prabhupada did promise all that to all of us. But at the same time, Srila Prabhupada gave these books. Why he gave these books? Why did he have to then write on Bhagavad-Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam? He could have just given us one book, a small book. Like so many sadhus are there, you might have come across them. They don't really have much literatures to provide to their followers, right? Such a big guru, and if you ask, is there something written by this guru? So then, yeah, he has a book, and that one book seems to be having everything actually, you know, and such a big person, lakhs of followers, but how much literature? Only one book. So Srila Prabhupada could have also made it so simple, no, just one book,
Mm.
and everyone just do this much and you go back to God. But then why did he take the pain of commentary on Gita, commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, this, that? Why? Because it's a vast science, right? He wanted people to study, understand, learn this science, and then also understand the importance of actually doing this to be able to become successful in what they want to achieve. Right? That's why these things are given. Now, when you understand that this is important and you will have to become like that if you really want to be successful, then you'll put your baby efforts. We may not put huge amount of efforts, but some baby efforts.
Mm.
And those efforts of yours will be reciprocated by Krishna. So what we think is so difficult now, if we keep on putting the efforts, then maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the line, you will come to know, yes, this is how you do it. This is how you practice it.
Yes, Prabhuji. So when we start in Krishna consciousness, we get started with, okay, do one round, that is good enough. Then
Yeah,
as we get, every day it gets more deeper and deeper and more to
correct,
uncover and do.
correct. Isn't it? So that's how it is. Now, when we think, no, this is not possible or this is not required, then that is not the good approach. Uh, this is actually required. It's very much important to understand it. And as we practice Krishna consciousness and we want to apply this in our life, we will also get intelligence from Krishna is sitting within our heart on how to do it.
Yeah.
Then one becomes, you can say a master of this science or understands this science very well. Okay, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, if we go deeper and deeper, I'm talking about myself, it appears that I'm lost. We are lost.
Lost where?
Lost means come to the conclusion that whatever Prabhupada said in the beginning, that chant 16 rounds and follow the directive principles, it's okay. Okay means you will come, you will be liberated to some extent, whatever he thinks.
That's not called being lost. That is just that you begin to appreciate more what you have been given. Chanting Hare Krishna is the ultimate thing. But it's just that when you study properly and you serve nicely, you get the blessings of your superiors, Vaishnavas, spiritual master. Then you begin to appreciate more what you are doing. That's appreciation, increased appreciation. It's not that you're lost. It's not that you have to do something special. You just have to do what we are doing. But you have a better understanding of what you're doing. Did Arjuna learn something extra to become dear to Krishna? No, he was a fighter, he remained a fighter. He didn't have to change anything. But after hearing Bhagavad-Gita, he got a newer perspective on how he should fight, isn't it?
Correct.
Similarly, for us, the process is given to us. You chant Hare Krishna, you do deity worship, you go to temple, you associate with devotees, you honor Mahaprasadam. We have to continue to do the same thing. But when we are studying Gita, we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam, all that we are doing, it is supposed to increase our understanding, approach in what we are doing. That's all. The same thing that we are doing. We have to do it in a better understanding, with a better understanding in a better manner. That's why this is given. So it boils down to that simple Hare Krishna chanting only. But then chanting with a better understanding. Similarly, serving with a better understanding. And that is the let's call advancement.
Prabhuji, whenever I, I myself am saying, whenever I read Bhagavatam, and if I go deep into it, then I think that I'm.
Your voice is not coming. Maybe network issue. Okay, Prabhu, when you come back, we will hear from you. Let's continue. 4.18. कर्मण्य कर्म यः पश्येत् अकर्मणि च कर्म यः स बुद्धिमान मनुष्येषु स युक्तः कृत्स्न कर्म कृत्. One who sees action, one who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is the transcendent opposition, although engaged in all sorts of activities. Hmm. So one who sees inaction in action and action in inaction. That means Krishna is kind of confusing here, Arjuna, but he's not confusing. He's saying when you really understand what is karma, what is akarma, then you will also become so mature that you will not see things superficially. You will go to the root and you'll be able to see things from an inner vision. And when you see things like that, sometimes karma, which means externally someone is doing such, Herculean task, but that person is actually completely, you can say, unbound by his actions. So that karma will be a karma. Like to give an example, Srila Prabhupada, he was working very hard at such a ripe age, right? Now, someone may externally think he's just a person so ambitious, he wants to be successful, he just wants to make money and open so many centers all over the world, and he wants to be famous, and that's why he's working so hard. One may think like that. Externally, he appears to be very busy. But we all know that even he was working for 22 hours a day, whatever he was doing was transcendental action, right? And then someone may see, that person may see karma in akarma, which means someone may be sitting very idle, doing only meditation throughout the day, not even, you know, uh, collecting 1 rupee from anyone, eating barely, sleeping barely, just whole day sitting in meditation. And yet, at the same time, in that person's mind, he or she might be thinking, oh, if I fool people like this by sitting in meditation for 6 months, they all will start believing that I'm God and they'll start worshipping me, and then I'll have all the opulence that I need. So that person is externally doing nothing. Akarma, right? Akarma means idle, but he is still generating karma because within the mind he's thinking like that. So here it says one who can see like this actually understands what is karma, what is akarma. That person understands. Abhesina Prabhu, please read.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. A person acting in Krishna consciousness is naturally free from the bonds of karma. His activities are all performed for Krishna. Therefore, he does not enjoy or suffer any of the effects of work. Consequently, he is intelligent in human society, even though he is engaged in all sorts of activities for Krishna. Akarma means without reaction to work. The impersonalist ceases fruitive activities out of fear so that the resultant action may not be a stumbling block on the path of self realization, but the personalist knows rightly his position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness. Because everything is done for Krishna, he enjoys only transcendental happiness in the discharge of this service. Those who are engaged in this process are known to be without desire for personal sense gratification. The sense of eternal servitorship to Krishna makes one immune to all sorts of reactionary elements of work. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes. So this line is very important. The last line. The sense of eternal servitorship to Krishna makes one immune to all sorts of reactionary elements of love. Right? When one executes things with this mentality, I am Krishna's servant, then that action which he does or she does doesn't bound or doesn't bind that person. But when the same action is done with some material identity, then that action becomes binding in nature. Okay. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he simplified it to this thing that you should always think yourself just a servant of Krishna. Should think, if you think like that and you act like that, then naturally one is liberated. One is free from all material bondage. Therefore, we learn from our teachers, spiritual masters. They tell, whatever you do it in servant consciousness. That you are a servant of Krishna. Whatever you do, even if you are doing your material duties, do it in this consciousness. That's more important, right? If you're a parent, then you should take care of your child with this consciousness, in this consciousness. For a child serving your parent, then you should do that in this consciousness. Anything you do, you have to do this in this consciousness. Then that activity doesn't become binding. Next verse. Yasya sarve samarambah kama sankalpa varjitah Gyan agni dakta karmanam tam ahu panditang buddha. One is understood to be in full knowledge whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Purport. Chanakya Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Only a person in full knowledge can understand the activities of a person in Krishna consciousness. Because the person in Krishna consciousness is devoid of all kinds of sense gratificatory propensities, it is to be understood that he has burned up the reactions of his work by perfect knowledge of his constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is actually learned who has attained to such perfection of knowledge. Development of this knowledge of eternal servitorship to the Lord is compared to fire. Such a fire, once kindled, can burn up all kinds of reactions to work. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Next. Tyaktva karma phala sangam nitya tripto nirashayah karmanyabhi pravrittopi naiva kinchit karoti saha. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. Although engaged in all kinds of undertakings, that person does not perform any fruitive action. Srila Prabhupada used to give a very simple example to explain this. Anyone knows of that example? Like he used to say, this man is so busy dealing with money, but he knows that this is not my money. Know that example?
Account, bank account,
Yeah,
Prabhu.
a cashier in a bank,
Cashier.
right? Shilpad used to give that example that a cashier in the bank is dealing with so much money. Maybe he's counting lakhs every day, but he knows that no, this is not all my money. I'm just counting it, right? Hmm. So one who does everything he or she does without any attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent. He performs no fruitive action, though engaged in all kinds of undertakings, though busy doing everything. That person is not, you know. Do we really have to learn all this? The art of work that is given here in Bhagavad Gita?
Practice, Prabhuji.
Yeah, do we have to practice it?
Yes,
Yeah,
Sometimes
why
and
we have to
sometimes.
practice? Because let's say I chant Hare Krishna and I'm honoring Krishna Prasadam and I'm keeping myself very pure. But what about the time when we are not chanting Hare Krishna? When we are in materialistic association, doing
Then
mundane,
then same pros and cons.
doing mundane duties. So that time, how will our consciousness remain pure? If I don't work in this spirit, then it's like, okay, I did very good sadhana in the morning. And then in the afternoon, when I was engaged in my material duties, I got drained in my consciousness, you know. So it's like one thing is that you work very hard to get something, and the other thing is that you lose it at other time. So if we work in this consciousness, what we are gaining will not lose it. It will remain with us, you know. Otherwise, you take 5 steps to get free from material entanglement, and then you take 5 steps to become bound by material entanglement. It's not going to help now. Mm. So this art of work, learning this art is very important. That's why it's given here. And let's read the purport here. Pradnayani Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. The freedom from the bondage of actions is possible only in Krishna consciousness when one is doing everything for Krishna. A Krishna conscious person acts out of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he has no attraction for the results of the action. He is not even attached to his personal maintenance, for everything is left to Krishna. Nor is he his position. He does his duty to the best of his ability and leaves everything to Krishna. Such an unattached person is always free from the resultant reactions of good and bad. It is as though he were not doing anything. This is the sign of akarma or actions without fruitive reactions. Any other action, therefore, devoid of Krishna consciousness, is binding upon the worker, and that is the real aspect of vikarma as explained herein before. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
निराशिर यत चित्तात्मा त्यक्त सर्व परिग्रहः शारीरं केवलं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम्. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus, working is not affected by sinful reactions. Let's read the Bhagavad. Sankarshan Vishnu Prabhuji, please read. That time you got disconnected, therefore we continued reading. So after you complete this reading, you can ask your question. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. The Krishna consciousness person does not expect good or bad results in his activities. His mind and intelligence are fully controlled. He knows that because he is part and parcel of the Supreme, the part played by him as a part and parcel of the whole is not his own activity, but is only being done through him by the Supreme. When it when the hand moves, he moves. It does not move out of its own accord, but by the endeavor of the whole body. A Krishna conscious person, is always dovetailed with the supreme desire for he has no desire for personal sense gratification. He moves exactly like a part of a machine. As a machine, part requires oiling and cleaning for maintenance, so a Krishna conscious man maintains himself by his work just to remain fit for action in the transcendental level service of the Lord. He is therefore immune to all the reactions of the endeavors. Like an animal, he has no proprietorship even over his own body. A cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in his possession, yet the animal does not protest, nor does it have any real independence. A Krishna conscious person fully engaged in self-realization has very little time to falsely possess any material object. For maintaining body and soul, he does not require unfair means of accumulating money. He does not therefore become contaminated by such material sins. He is free from all reactions to his actions. Two things. Thank you. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji, what was your question? You can ask now. You said when you read Srimad Bhagavatam very deeply, what happens?
Actually, when not deeply, when just reading Bhagavatam, sometimes one path is prescribed, and if I try to implement the same path somewhere in another chapter or somewhere.
Sorry? Again, you got lost. Hmm. Okay, same thing again. So, now in the purport, Prabhuji, your voice was not coming in between, so we could not hear what you were saying. Some network issue. In the purport, you see here an example is given. Like an animal, he has no proprietorship even over his own body. So when you hear such an example, what comes to your mind? A cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in his possession, yet the animal does not protest. When you read something like this, what comes to your mind?
Surrenderance.
Surrender.
But then that kind of surrender, doesn't it sound like too much?
Prabhu, submission.
Yeah, it is submission, but then here it is like a cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in his possession, yet the animal does not protest. So that level of surrender,
Conditioned mind, Prabhuji.
that level of surrender, that what do you think? That level of surrender?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So it is that level of surrender, but at the same time, we know that Krishna is not cruel. Isn't it? So to be surrendered to a cruel personality to that degree might be difficult. But then we know Krishna is not cruel at all. So that spirit of surrender is very pure and very strong. But of course, to a very compassionate and loving personality, not to a dictator or a cruel personality. Like Krishna is very kind, but the surrender of the person is like that. So definitely, this is of a pure devotee. This situation, this mindset, not an ordinary person who can think like that. I'm so surrendered to Krishna. Hmm. Okay. Uh, yeah, there is a question in the chat box. Can we say Buddhi Yoga, Nishkam Karma Yoga, and Akarma has same meaning? Yeah, kind of similar only. If yes, why Krishna used different terms? Because you are understanding, you're understanding things from different angles. That's why different terms are there. Hmm. And furthermore, there are people who may use these terms in a wrong manner. So then Krishna is just giving us a correct outlook towards these terms. That's why he's using different terms. People may define these terms wrongly. So Krishna is giving correct definition of what it means to be nishkam, what akarma means, what buddhi yoga means. You have to give correct definition to things, no? Because those who are, let's say you are someone who knows nothing and you are studying Bhagavad-Gita as it is. But what if someone who is studying Bhagavad-Gita as it is and he or she knows a lot of nonsense, I mean trash, spiritual trash, you can say, by reading some Mayavadi books, this and that. So when that person comes to Prabhupada's book, there has to be things for him also to get rid of, no, the contamination he or she has gathered from other places. So he should come across correct definition of those terms. That's why there are so many things which individually to you may not really make sense or may not be of requirement. but to someone else it may be. Okay. So what is vikarma? Vikarma means vikarma, which means action against prescribed duties. Sinful action, vikarma. Sinful action is called vikarma. Fine. Sankarshan Vishnu Prabhuji. I hope this time you'll be able to complete your question.
I will discuss afterwards, Prabhuji.
You'll ask this afterwards.
Yeah.
No problem. Okay. Because 2 times when you were speaking, you got lost. Internet.
Net is poor, I think.
Yeah. Or maybe you can put in the chat box, Prabhuji. If you type in the chat box, no?
But writing takes time, no? I'm not so fluent.
No problem. Fine. So we go to next verse.
By that time, you go onward when I'm writing.
Okay. Next verse. Yadricha labha santushto dandvatito vimatsaraha sama siddhava siddhau cha kritvapi na nibadyate. He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. Priyanka Mataji, please read.
Hare Krishna. A Krishna conscious person does not make much endeavor even to maintain his body. He is satisfied with gains which are obtained from their own accord. He neither begs nor borrows, but he labors honestly as far as he is in his power and is satisfied
Again, that problem.
more independent in his livelihood. He does not allow
Your network is not proper, Mataji.
or misery and happiness. A Krishna conscious person is about duality because he does not hesitate to act in any way for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, he is steady both in success and in failure. These signs are visible when one is fully in transcendental knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
Here it is mentioned like without being disturbed by the duality of material world. What is exactly meant by duality of material world? Like
The word duality means the opposite qualities that we experience in this material world. Like, for example, happiness and distress. These are a duality. Heat and cold. It's a duality. So in material world, everything you experience comes in the form of a duality, which means things are always changing. Sometimes it is the way you like, and sometimes it is the way you don't like. Sometimes it's as per your expectation. Sometimes it is not as per your expectation. So not disturbed by that. It's like that.
Prabhuji,
So
Prabhuji,
once, in just a second, I'll complete something I'm saying, then I'll continue. Here in the Prabhupada gives the example of the Duality is felt in terms of heat and cold, misery and happiness. So the problem with this duality is that it really disturbs our mind. Um, and because of that, we don't always stick to doing our duty. You know, the duality disturbs us. And because of that, sometimes you feel like doing what we should be doing, and sometimes you don't feel like doing what we should be doing. But here it is said you should not be disturbed by those dualities, and you continue to do what you're supposed to do for the satisfaction of Krishna. Like to give you a very simple example. Let's say you have taken up the seva of distributing books of Srila Prabhupada, and you are setting up a book table in front of, let's say, a mall or at the station, and you spend 2 hours or 3 hours standing on the book table distributing the books. So one day you may not distribute even a single book. That means complete failure. And someday you may distribute maybe 100 books out of that table. So if you that day when you distribute zero book, that day you make up your mind, I don't want to do this seva anymore. People are not taking books. Let me give it up. That means what happened? You became disturbed by this, by the loss, by the failure, and not being successful. Right? So it is said that person does not become disturbed by such dualities and continues to work. Hmm. Therefore, he study both in success and in failure. Steady. These are only possible when one is fully in transcendental knowledge.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I have a question.
Yes, Mataji.
Especially during book distribution and such, there is a level of sorry, a level of competition sort of that is encouraged in the centers, right? Like, oh, somebody has distributed so many books, and there is some level of a reward and recognition sort, right? In a way that is not okay, correct? Especially to be done inside of a center.
Yes. So uh, let us look at it in different ways. One thing is definitely it's not okay. But the other thing is, it depends on your consciousness. Like, for example, if you understand that this is not good, then it's good that you have come to that level of unconsciousness that for you that is not an inspiration to distribute Srila Prabhupada books, because you are now firmly convinced I should be distributing Prabhupada books whether someone rewards me or does not reward me, right? Hmm. But then there are people who may not have come to that level of commitment to distributing books. So they maybe are those who want some recognition for them to do this activity. You know. So sometimes those who are leaders, in order to keep those people also busy in serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada, they may give those kind of, add-on benefits so that they will continue to do what they are doing. It's not the best thing, but sometimes it is required just to encourage people who are not interested at all. You know. So when you have understood that this is not good, so you be out of it. I mean, you don't do the book distribution for those recognitions that they give or those rewards they give, right? But then, should we completely remove that system? Well, we can, but then very few people will be interested and to do this seva. No. Therefore, there has to be what? There has to be education. How there should be education? Let's say initially you gave people some rewards because they distributed books very nicely. Then there should be a class in which you should explain to them the benefit of Nishkama Karma. You know, and those who are intelligent, they will understand the point in the class that if we are supposed to do Nishkam Karma, then why are we taking rewards for distributing Prabhupada books? We should not be, right? You know. And then they can be encouraged. Now, okay, from now onwards, you will not get any reward for distributing because we have come to that understanding. So, when we are preaching Krishna consciousness, sometimes we have to come below the ideal standard just to encourage people. Otherwise, if you just start with the ideal standard, people will become so, you can say, demoralized because they will think, oh, this is too high for us.
Prabhuji, a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at a small scale level within a center or things like that, okay, I can understand that, okay, there are people who probably needs that kind of, their consciousness is not at that level. But this happens even at across centers, like X center, Delhi versus X center and Bombay, and prices are distributed like
That
that.
also
Then,
happens. That also happens. So now, while that is happening, it is your own individual responsibility that you don't fall prey to what seemingly is wrong. You keep your consciousness proper.
okay.
That's very important because the institute will always make decisions which will be sometimes, for some people unfavorable for their Krishna consciousness. Because when you are talking about institute has thousands of members, and they cannot always take a decision which will satisfy all the members.
Mm.
So they will make some decisions sometimes which will make some people satisfied and some people not satisfied. And sometimes some decisions which will make these satisfied and the others go, dissatisfied. Why? Because everyone is not at the same level of consciousness. So for those who are at a higher level of consciousness, they have to remain undisturbed. And that's the victory. That's how they have won. Isn't it? But rather than changing the system, because if you change the system, sometimes it's not possible at all. You can't change it,
Prabhuji,
right? You can't change. Therefore, the good thing is what, the best thing is what, that we should have all the different ways of bringing people to Krishna consciousness, encouraging them, and at the same time, we should have proper education also, so that every person is, entering the funnel. You're understanding? And initially, when they are very new, they may be attracted to Krishna consciousness, seeing these lollipops. Okay, if I do this, I get this. If I do that, I get that. But then you should not remain there only. You should move ahead. And then there'll be always new people getting attracted to the lollipops. You know, that thing is there. So we have to, have a system that you get the new people in, but also not let them stay where they are. Make them also progress to the next level. That's the point.
Prabhuji, what if individuals, some of them are not really interested in seva, but they are doing good Krishna bhakti, right? In terms of their reading scriptures, etc.
It's not about whether they're interested in seva or not seva. The thing is that you should do some seva. Why you should do some seva? Because that's your duty towards the acharya. It's not a point of whether I like or not like. It's a point of having that duty. Like for example, is there a choice I should pay the tax or not pay the tax? No. Similarly, when I have received knowledge from an acharya, then it's a part of my duty that I have to serve the mission of the acharya. So I have to do some seva. It may be a very small seva, but it has to be done because that's my, gratitude towards him. Because at the end, if I am just sitting and studying or chanting or doing nice puja at my home for my deities and all that, this is something which is just for your own personal spiritual development. But what about your support to your spiritual master, your acharya, who has a mission, right? Therefore, it's not that it is expected from us that we should become full time in the temple and don't do anything else in life and just serve in the temple and do nothing else. No, that is not something which is expected. Also, what is expected is you take some seva in the temple. It may be very small, but it's a seva. It consumes some of your time, some of your energy, some of your money, and you do it just as a matter of duty towards spiritual Prabhupada.
Yes, Prabhuji, makes sense.
Yeah, and that should be done in a very selfless manner. That's all. That it's my duty to Srila Prabhu. Whether the temple is rewarding it for you or not, whether the temple is recognizing it or not, that should not be our concern. And we should also not fall prey to some of the managers' very ambitious agendas. Sometimes it may happen that a person sitting in a managerial position in the temple may have personal ambitions, personal material agendas. Right? That's also possible. So we don't have to fall prey to that. It's okay. You do what you can do, and fine. People may not appreciate it, no problem. Right? But the idea of not going and doing any seva is not good. That's not nice. Right? We should do something.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, what are some incentives we can use to attract people to service, new people?
Prasadam?
Oh.
Prasadam can be there. We can give them some gifts. Okay, if you do nice seva, you'll get a set of Srimad Bhagavatam. You'll get. So we can attract people in those ways. Right?
Yes.
Srila Prabhupada also did that sometimes, to attract people. Because the point is that we should know one thing. That person is not at loss. Because even if that person has come for an incentive to Krishna consciousness, that little time that person has spent in Krishna consciousness is something he or she is getting maybe in millions of lifetimes, once in millions of lifetimes. Isn't it? So why not give that opportunity to that person? Why take away that opportunity? Even if, let's say, that person has served Krishna with material desires. But the good thing is that that person has served Krishna. Right or wrong? That's the best thing. So why take away that opportunity from people? We can't do that. Therefore, iskcon sometimes it does so much, like give people a place to stay, give them prasadam, and sometimes just tell them that you just chant and you just read and study and don't do anything, and we'll take care of you. In some places, even new people, when they join, this much facility is also given. But why? Just for the reason, okay, your whole life you may not practice Krishna consciousness, but for 6 months you do it, that is also quite good for you. After that, one may leave and go. But then those 6 months are very special for that person. Right?
Right. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Can I
Dandavat.
ask one question?
Yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji, here it is written, he does not allow anyone's service to hamper his own service in Krishna consciousness. Can you please explain this point?
Read the line before this.
He is therefore independent in his livelihood.
Yeah. So when one is not independent in one's livelihood, one is dependent on someone else, then that dependence becomes a hindrance to one's practicing Krishna consciousness sometimes. So therefore, because that person is independent in his livelihood, he does not allow anyone's service to hamper his own service in Krishna consciousness.
Prabhuji, like financial independence.
Yeah, financially independent. That's what it means, financial independence. Like Srila Prabhupada said, everyone should try to become a Brahmana and live like a Brahmana and earn like a Brahmana. Now, how does a Brahmana earn? A Brahmana is no one's slave. That's how a Brahmana earns, isn't it? So in that way, that person is completely in control of his life, no? How much he wants to work and all that. But when you are dependent, then you are not in control. You are working as per someone else's requirements, isn't it? Therefore, in long run, if you want to practice Krishna consciousness the way you want, you have to become financially independent. In long run, it may not be possible like immediately now, but in long run, it is required. Otherwise, all of you are working in a company, you know that they are going to really suck the blood out of you. No, isn't it? You have to work so much for us. Then only you get your promotion, you get this, you get that, and all that. Isn't it correct? So, in long run, one has to become financially independent. Then one can think, okay, I don't want to work so much. I just want to focus on my Krishna consciousness. Or I work little bit, and from that little effort, I get this much money, and I'm happy with this much. Okay. Okay. Nothing else, right? We move on to next verse. Text 23. Okay, before we do that, let's read one excerpt from Srila Prabhupada's lecture. Bhaktija Mataji, can you please read what is there on the screen?
Success or failure. If you are working for Krishna, it is Krishna's decision whether you are successful or not successful. This means don't think that because you are Krishna conscious, you will always be successful, but it really doesn't matter. If you are unsuccessful, then be assured that this is Krishna's arrangement. To know and accept this is to be Krishna conscious. So never be depressed because you are unsuccessful. A devotee is never depressed in this horrible condition of life. Lecture Bhagavad-Gita 4.22, Bombay 74.
Yeah. So you may be successful, sometimes you may not be successful. Even in Krishna conscious endeavors, it may happen. But one should not be depressed. Fine, next verse, 4.23. गतसङ्गस्य मुक्तस्य ज्ञानवस्थितचेतसः यज्ञायाचरतः कर्म samagrang praviliyate. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. Yes, Shri Lakshmi Mataji, can you please read the purport?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is freed from all dualities and thus is free from the contaminations of the material modes. He can become liberated because he knows his constitutional position in relation with Krishna, and thus his mind cannot be drawn from Krishna consciousness. Consequently, whenever he does for Krishna, who is primeval Vishnu. Therefore, all his works are technically sacrifices because sacrifice aims to satisfy the Supreme Person, Vishnu, Krishna. The resultant actions of such works certainly merge into transcendence, and one does not suffer material effects. Hare Krishna.
ब्रह्मार्पणं ब्रह्महवि ब्रह्माग्नौ ब्रह्मणाहुतं ब्रह्मैव तेन गन्तव्यं ब्रह्म कर्म समाधिना. Too many times the word Brahma is coming here. The import of this verse is that when you are engaging in your work in that consciousness that I am doing it for Krishna as a servant, no attachment to the result, no personal sense gratification, desire is there, then everything you do becomes spiritual. Brahma here means spiritual. Okay. So an example is given, like for example, someone is doing a homa. You know what a homa is, a fire sacrifice. So what is that? Brahma Arpanam. Whatever you are doing Arpana in that homa, that is spiritual. Brahma Havir, the butter means the ghee which we use, Havi, Havishya, that is also spiritual. Brahma Agno, the fire in which you are putting something, that is also spiritual. Brahmana Hutam, and the person who is performing is also spiritual. Brahmaiva tena gantavyam. So when everything is spiritual, the person who is doing it, what you are doing it, the things that you are using in the whole activity, what will be the result or outcome of that action? It will also be spiritual only, right? Hmm? So Brahmaiva tena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina. In this way, you are always established or situated in spiritual consciousness. Therefore, you see, right from the very beginning, what did Krishna tell Arjuna? You are not this body, your spirit soul. So, first of all, forget your material identity. Second, what you are doing, even that can be spiritualized. So, don't think this fighting is a material activity. It is a yajna. Huh? So, when my perception becomes this, I am spiritual, everything I do is spiritual, the things I use is spiritual, which means transcendental. The result or outcome of what I am doing will also be spiritual. You know. And if any of these things become material, then the result of that will be material. So Krishna is explaining this with this verse. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. Where you are putting it, that is also spiritual, and what you are putting is also spiritual. That's the point. What I'm doing, it should be done in Krishna consciousness for the pleasure of Krishna, right? Then the goal will be Krishna's abode achieved. That's the point. So I should do everything I do in Krishna consciousness for the pleasure of Krishna. Purport. Here it said that, okay, before we read, one should do for the sake of yajna, yajnaya. So what does that mean? Two things. You work for Krishna with knowledge of Krishna. Therefore, did Krishna tell Arjuna you should fight? Yes, he told. Fight for whom? For me. And then did he give Arjuna the knowledge about himself in chapter 4? Yes, he gave, right? So you work for Krishna with knowledge of Krishna. Therefore, we have these things like you sit in a class, you hear about Krishna, you get Sambandha Gyan, you get the knowledge of Krishna. And the next is what? Then you work for Krishna. So whole day you're doing so many things. And you offer the result of that to Krishna. Hmm? In this way, karma plus jnana, both. Huh? Okay, Purport. Soham Prabhuji, please read.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. How activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. There are various activities in Krishna consciousness, and all of them will be described in the following verses. But for the present, just the principle of Krishna consciousness is described. A conditioned soul, entangled in material contamination, is sure to act in the material atmosphere, and yet he has to get out of such an environment. The process by which the conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. For example, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of the bowels due to overindulgence in milk products is cured by another milk product, namely curds. The materially absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness as set forth here in the Gita. This process is generally known as yajna or activities sacrifices, simply meant for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. The more the activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness or for Vishnu only, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. The word Brahman, Brahman means spiritual. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his transcendental body are called Brahma Jyoti, his spiritual effulgence. Everything that exists is situated in that Brahma Jyoti, but when the Jyoti is covered by illusion, Maya, or sense gratification, it is called material. This material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus, the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are all combined together, Brahman or the absolute truth. The absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusionary consciousness into Brahman or the Supreme. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna or sacrifice for the absolute. In that condition or spiritual consciousness, the contributor, the contribution, the consumption, the performer of leader of the performance, and the result or ultimate gain, everything becomes one in the absolute, the supreme Brahman. That is the method of Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hmm. 25.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I have a question.
Yes,
Can I?
Mataji.
Prabhuji, we talk a lot about offering, especially milk products in yagna, or even in general usage now, right? But back then, the way the cows were treated and the way they're treated now in the industry is very different. Directly
Yes.
or indirectly, we are somehow encouraging slaughterhouses because of that, right? Because cows, the second they don't produce milk, they are like sent here. And the more we are in demand for this milk products, it's like a cyclic thing that is happening, right, Prabhuji? Shouldn't we take any action because, or especially as a Krishna conscious society, shouldn't we care for them by not using them?
Yes, we should. Therefore, it's best that we don't buy the farm dairy products. We should not. We should not. Better we get milk from a place where we know the cows are protected or taken care of, and use milk from that, whether it's milk or yogurt or ghee or whatever. I personally don't consume dairy products from outside. So that much I can do, but I can't make that change on the institute level.
Because
Right.
it's also difficult to know the source, right?
Yeah,
It's not
that you
possible
have to
these
find
days.
out. If you know it's good. If you don't know, then you can switch to vegan diet. No problem. That's okay. Veganism is not wrong. If one is not sure of the quality of dairy, then one can switch to vegan diet. But if you are getting milk from a good source, then you can take it. So, like for example, in Vrindavan, iskcon Vrindavan, and many iskcon temples, even in Mumbai, they whatever milk products they make for the Lord, they have the milk coming from their own goshala or from a goshala they know where cows are properly taken care of. So they don't offer Krishna products of, dairy from the market that you purchase and just make things and offer to Krishna. They don't. So this is something which at some places they follow, some temples they follow, and some places they may not follow. But if they don't follow, personally, individually, we may not be able to do much. But at our own level in our home, we can. Nothing wrong in that.
Prabhuji, but what about the shops outside Vrindavan selling the pera, etc.? Are they getting the things from?
I don't know that you
You
have
were
to
just
ask
not told,
them.
you were
That
just
you have
not
to
told
ask
that
them.
you were just not told that we are getting it from our own goshalas.
So you don't have to buy those peras. Why is it necessary to buy those peras?
No, just now you are told that we are getting it from the goshala of our own.
No, for whom I said, for the deities I said,
For deities, acha, only for deities. Acha,
for the deities, what they offer to Krishna,
Raj Bhog, Bal Bhog, like that.
all that they get proper milk from proper goshala.
So,
Okay,
Prabhuji, sir, you are almost going to the next verse, Prabhuji. So, in this verse, I know there's a lot Prabhupada has said in terms of the process and changing it from matter or material to the spiritual. And in the translation at the beginning, it is mentioned that a fully absorbed Krishna conscious only can attain spiritual kingdom. So, obviously, whatever we do today, though with the consciousness at the trying to keep it at the spiritual level, we're still doing material activities, right? And this material activities, I don't know, transition, and I'm like little confused, Prabhuji. So if you can explain this purport and this shloka.
so when you do the material activities with the right understanding, then that material activity no longer remains a material activity.
Okay.
That's the point. Like Arjuna is again doing the same activity of fighting after hearing Bhagavad-Gita, killing people. But that activity doesn't remain a material activity because he's doing it in transcendental consciousness.
Okay.
So whether it is material or spiritual, it all boils down to my consciousness,
Okay.
right? That's what Krishna
That's
is teaching Arjuna. And that's what we also have to learn. Because if we don't change the consciousness, every activity becomes a material act. To give you an example, do you think ringing a bell in front of the dog, in front of the deity of God, is that not a material activity?
Yeah, it is a material activity, but the consciousness when we do it,
But actually, it's a material activity,
it is a
right?
material activity.
You're
Yeah.
just ringing a bell. Bell is material. That sound is also material. So it's not that that activity you can say, it's a spiritual activity because you are just, doing. So some people, they think that uh, if I do arti for Krishna, that's spiritual activity. But then that can also become material, no?
Mm.
There are so many people out there who are just doing this as a profession, isn't it? You know them,
Yeah.
right? So the point is, every activity is material. With your consciousness, you make it spiritual.
Okay. So that's the statement that Prabhupada has written. Matter dovetail for the cause of absolute truth regains its spiritual quality.
Yes. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada used to say, this rose is material. You offer it to Krishna, it becomes spiritual.
Okay.
It's the same rose giving the same fragrance, but because it's offered to Krishna, it has become spiritual.
Okay.
Right? So that's called dovetailing. And that's what we all have to do, and we are trying to do. We dovetail.
Mm.
Correct?
Yes. Thank you, Prabhupada.
Yes. Attaining knowledge through sacrifice. So, next section. To attain knowledge through sacrifice. Yajna becomes the cause of knowledge. Krishna will talk about 10 different types of yajnas prescribed for 10 different kinds of people, but all ultimately leading to knowledge. Daivameva pare yajnam yoginaha paribhasate brahmagnava pare yajnam yajnene evopajuvati. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. So two kinds of yajnas are mentioned here. One is the yajna of demigod worship, and the other is the yajna of impersonal Brahman worship. You can see in this table on the slide, 10 types of yajnas are given in these 5 verses, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Okay. So 25 talks about demigod worship and Brahman worship. Then 26 talks about mind control and sense enjoyment. 27 talks about self-control. 28 charity, austerity, mysticism, study of scriptures. And 29 about pranayam. All these are what? Different examples of yajna. Are these the only 10 types of yajnas? No, these are examples. These are just examples. They can be anything which can be made into a yajna. Fine. Hmm? So, we'll read the purport here of 25. Two types of yajnas mentioned. Demigod worship, Brahman worship. Sarveshwar Jagannath Prabhuji, please read.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. As described above, a person engaged in the discharging duties of Krishna consciousness is also called a perfect yogi or a first-class mystic. But there are others also who perform similar sacrifice in the worship of the demigods, and still others who sacrifice to Supreme Brahma or the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord. So there are different kinds of sacrifices in terms of different categories. Such different categories of sacrifice by different types of performers only superficially demark varieties of sacrifice. Factually, sacrifice means to satisfy the Supreme Lord. Vishnu is also known as Yagna. All the different varieties of sacrifice can be placed within two primary divisions. Primarily, namely, sacrifice of worldly possession, possession and sacrifice of pursuits of transcendental knowledge. Those who are in the Krishna consciousness sacrifice all material possession for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, while others who want some temporary material happiness sacrifice the material possessions to satisfy demigods such as Indra, the sun god, etc. And others who are impersonalist sacrifice their identity by merging into existence of impersonal Brahma. The demigods are powerful living entities appointed by Supreme Lord for the maintenance and supervision of the material functions like heating, watering, lighting of the universe. Those who are interested in material benefits worship the demigods by various sacrifices according to the Vedic rituals. They are called Bahu Ishvara Vadi or believe in many gods. But others who worship the impersonal features of the absolute truth and regard the form of the demigods as temporary, sacrifice their individual selves in the supreme fire and thus end their individual existence by merging into the existence of Supreme. Such impersonalists sacrifice their time in philosophical speculations to understand the transcendental nature of Supreme. In other words, the fruitive workers sacrifice their material possessions for material enjoyment, whereas the impersonalist sacrifice his material designation with a view to merge into the existence of Supreme. From the impersonalist, the fire altar of sacrifice is Supreme Brahma, and the offering is the self being consumed by the fire of Brahma. The Krishna conscious person like Arjuna, however, sacrifices everything for satisfaction of Krishna, and thus all his material possession as well as his own self, everything is sacrificed for Krishna. Thus, he is the first class yogi, but he did not lose his individual existence. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Next verse 26. Shotradinindriyanyanye samyagnishu juhvati shabdadin vishayananya indriyagnishu juhvati. Some, the unauthorized the unadulterated brahmachari sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control. And others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. So in the previous verse, there was mention of demigod worship. That is also a kind of yajna, because you are trying to satisfy the demigods. Krishna mentioned in chapter 3 itself, he made that yajna system. And then there was the yajna which the impersonalists do. What is that? In the Supreme Brahman, they offer themselves, their individual identity. That's what they sacrifice. So that is also yajna. Then in 26, it said the brahmacharis, they sacrifice what? The sense gratification in the fire of sense control or mind control. That's how they do yajna. And the grihasthas, how do they do yajna? They sacrifice the objects of sense gratification in the fire of the senses. So this is sometimes a bit difficult to understand. How is sense gratification a yajna? Isn't it? Basically, it means sense gratification. So how is sense gratification a yajna? How can sense gratification become a yajna?
By controlling the
Very good. So it's not a yajna if it is done in an unregulated fashion. But if it is done in a regulated manner, then that also becomes a yajna. Like for example, if there is a very tasty preparation, so to not eat it, it requires sense control. But to eat it in regulation also requires sense control. Right? You understand it, isn't it? Correct. To not eat also requires sense control, and to eat it also in regulated way also requires sense control. So, someone who is, let's say, a renunciate, for that person, I'm not going to eat it. That is the option. And that way, that person has practiced sense control. And for someone who is a grihastha, that person may eat it, but in a regulated manner, and that is also sense control. So that is also yajna. So regulated sense gratification is allowed in grihastha ashram, And that itself is a yajna. Purport. Let's read the purport.
Prabhuji,
Sharada.
I had a question in the previous purport.
Yes, Mataji.
The last line, it says, thus he is the first class yogi, but he does not lose his individual existence. So, how do we understand that he does not lose his individual? Are we saying that the person shouldn't lose their identity, or how should we understand that?
Yeah. Here Srila Prabhupada is concluding that one should not do this yajna, which is sacrifice in the fire of Supreme Brahman, the way impersonalists they do. The impersonalists, they think that we will sacrifice ourselves in the fire of Supreme Brahman by losing our individual identity. So Srila Prabhupada is saying better than that is you learn to become a devotee and you sacrifice everything for Krishna, even your own self, but without losing your individual identity.
Here, is the identity referring to the soul or the body, Prabhuji?
So the impersonalists, they want to get rid of that identity also now. They don't want to be an individual soul. They want to merge with the Supreme Soul and become one.
Okay. Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
So a devotee will not do that. A devotee will keep that identity, individual existence, and yet sacrifice everything for the pleasure of Krishna, even the self. Okay, perfect. Sharada Mataji.
The members of the four divisions of human life, namely the brahmachari, the grihastha, the vanaprastha, and the sannyasi, are all meant to become perfect yogis or transcendentalists. Since human life is not meant for our enjoying sense gratification like the animals, the four orders of human life are so arranged that one may become perfect in spiritual life. The brahmacharis or the students under the care of a bona fide spiritual master control the mind by abstaining from sense gratification. A brahmachari hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness. Hearing is the basic principle for understanding, and therefore the pure brahmachari engages fully in Harer Namanukirtanam, chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. He restrains himself from the vibrations of material sounds, and his hearing is engaged in the transcendental sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Similarly, the householders who have some license for sense gratification perform such acts with great restraint. Sex, life, intoxication, and meat eating are general tendencies of human society. But a regulated householder does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. Marriage on the principles of religious life is therefore current in all civilized human society because that is the way for restricted sex life. The restricted um, the restricted the restricted yes um, uh, a brahmachari hears only words. Yes, the householders sex life, intoxication, and meat eating. This restricted unattached sex life is also a kind of yajna because the restricted householder sacrifices his general tendency towards sense gratification for higher transcendental life. Hare Krishna.
Yes, that's the point. So the thing is, either you can have objects of enjoyment around you, or you can completely be rid of objects of enjoyment. But if you have them around you, you can't just use them for your personal enjoyment. Rather, you should practice Krishna consciousness. That is also a kind of sense control, isn't it? So let's say someone is very rich. Does that person have to give up all his richness to become a good devotee? Not required. That person can still have all the wealth he has. But instead of using it for himself or herself, that wealth can be used for Krishna Seva. Hmm. That itself is also sense control, right? So that's the point, that one has to begin to learn everything one has, whether it is less or it is more, for Krishna Seva. And that is the key to sense control. Sarvanindriya karmani prana karmani chapare atmasamyam yogagno juvati jnana deepite. Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses, over the functions of all the senses and of the life breath, as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. So this is for the yogi. I'll add the
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Pranam. The yoga system conceived by Patanjali is referred to herein. In the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, the soul is called Pratyagatma and Paragatma. As long as the soul is attached to sense enjoyment, it is called Paragatma. But as soon as the same soul becomes detached from such sense enjoyment, it is called Pratyagatma. The soul is subjected to the function of 10 kinds of air at work within the body, and this is perceived through the breathing system. The Patanjali system of yoga instructs one on how to control the function of the body's air in the technical manner, so that ultimately all the function of the air within become favorable for purifying the soul of material attachment. According to this yoga system, Pratyagatma is the ultimate goal. This Pratyagatma is withdrawn from activities in matter. The senses interact with the sense objects, like the ear for hearing, eyes for seeing, nose for smelling, tongue for tasting, and hand for touching. And all of them are thus engaged in activities outside the self. They are called the function of the pranavayu. The apana vayu goes downwards, Vyana Vayu acts to shrink and expand. Samana Vayu adjusts equilibrium. Udan Vayu goes upwards, and one is enlightened. One engages all these in researching for self-realization. Thank you, Prabhu.
द्रव्ययज्ञास्तपो यज्ञा योगयज्ञास्तथा परे स्वाध्यायज्ञानयज्ञाश्च यतयः संशितव्रताः. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. So there's Dravya Yajna, in which one sacrifices his wealth or gives something in charity. Then there is Tapa Yajna, Yoga Yajna, or Jnana Yajna, and Swadhyaya Yajna. So when we are studying Bhagavad-Gita, it's kind of Swadhyaya Yajna, sacrificing the intelligence to understand the words of the Supreme Absolute. Let's read the purport. Sita Mataji.
Hare Krishna. These sacrifices may be fitted into various divisions. There are persons who are sacrificing their possessions in the form of various kinds of charities. In India, the rich mercantile community or princely orders upon various kinds of charitable institutions like Dharmashala, Anashetra, Atiti Shala, Antatalya, and Vidyapith. In other countries, too, there are many hospitals, old age homes, and similarly, charitable foundations meant for distributing food, education, and medical treatment free to the poor. All these charitable activities are called Dravyamaya Yagya. There are others who, for higher elevation in life or for promotion to higher planets within the universe, voluntarily accept many kinds of austerities, such as Chandrayana and Chaturmasya. These processes entail severe vows for conducting life under certain rigid rules. For example, under the Chaturmasya vow, the candidate does not shave for 4 months during the year, July to October. He does not eat certain foods, does not eat twice in a day, or does not leave home. Such sacrifice of the comforts of life is called Topamaya Yagya. There are still others who engage themselves in different kinds of mystic yogas like the Patanjali system, for merging into the existence of the Absolute, or Hatha Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga for particular perfections. And some travel to all the sanctified places for pilgrimage. All these practices are called yoga yagya. Sacrifice for a certain type of perfection in the material world. There are others who engage themselves in the studies of different Vedic literatures, specifically the Upanishads. And Vedanta Sutras, or the Prabhuji, could you please scroll downward? Thank you. Or the Sankhya philosophy. All of these are called Swadhyaya Yagya, or engagement in the sacrifice of studies. All these yogis are faithfully engaged in different types of sacrifice and are seeking a higher status of life. Krishna consciousness, however, is different from these because it is the direct service of the Supreme Lord. Krishna consciousness cannot be attained by any one of the above mentioned types of sacrifice, but can be attained only by the mercy of the Lord and his bona fide devotees. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is transcendental. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, I have a question.
Yes, Mataji.
Here we also spoke about contribution in terms of what the donation. Is donation to the temple is it considered any different? Because we do encourage that here quite a bit, right? In term, especially for temple, like a brick and all of that we do promotions. That was one question. And second one is, even we we also have the same thing, right? We leave certain foods like green leaf in a particular month, curds in a certain month, so on and so forth. If it is considered in the yogic more like the Patanjali yoga, which we don't really encourage or don't worry about so much, why do we do that?
First is dana, giving to the temple. So is that what you said? Is that the same as what is mentioned here?
Yeah.
No, there's a difference. One is you offer dana for a material reason, like dharmashala, anna kshetra, atiti shala, anathalaya, vidyapit, and all that. That's material charity. So that material charity is going to give you good material benefits. Now, when you offer dan to Lord Vishnu, then it is transcendental. It's a transcendental charity. Both are done, but the result is not going to be the same. One is going to give you material result, material benefits, and the other is going to give you spiritual benefits. Fine.
Prabhuji, sorry.
Just a second. One more question, right? You had second one.
Yes, Prabhuji was also asking, we also leave that foods in that certain month during the rainy season, right?
During the Chaturmas, we also leave
Chaturmas.
certain food
So
items. So
if
we do that not because we are actually observing Chaturmas as such, because Chaturmas Vrata is very strict, but it's just that we are doing some austerity as a devotee, as a practicing devotee. We are just doing some austerity. First thing. Second thing, from Ayurvedic perspective, also consuming these things in these months is not good for your health. So that's why we also observe that, you know. So there are reasons of health, Ayurveda perspective, 4 months, rainy season. Some food items should not be taken, which and when. And second, we are just practicing some tapasya. That's all. But it's not that we are doing Chaturmasa in that sense, because Chaturmas has many other rules to follow. One of the rules of Chaturmas is you should not travel. So we don't really follow the rules of Chaturmas. Okay. Arati Mataji, you had a question?
Yes, Prabhu. Prabhu, like when we give charity for cow, like go-grasa, for that, what does it come under? Does it come under material?
It depends on
or-
what is your consciousness while you do it. If you're giving
Yeah.
cow some charity, just thinking that, okay, this is my mundane dharma, then it's not going to give you much spiritual benefits. But if you give charity to cow, thinking that cow is very dear to Krishna, Krishna's name is Govinda or Gopal. He loves cows. Cows are dear to him. Therefore, I'm doing some seva to the cow who is dear to Krishna, then it becomes a type of devotional service.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
So, for anything to be Krishna conscious activity or devotional service, Krishna has to be in the center. Then only it becomes actual devotional service. If it's not, then it's not devotional service. It's just some mundane dharma, a religious activity. Okay, Mataji. Anything else? Okay, next verse, 29. We'll do two more verses, 29 and 30 today, and then we'll stop. So 29. Apane juvati pranam prane panam tatha pare pranavana gatirudva pranayam parayanaha apare niyataharah pranan praneshu juvati. Maybe we'll just stop at this verse because the purport is long. Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restrained to remain in trance practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing, thus curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. So this is the process of pranayama, controlling your breath. That is also a yajna. Two ways it can be done. One is you merge the outgoing breath into the incoming breath. Very technical, no? We can't do it. So then this is how yogis they attain success. And the other is you stop eating and you offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. Again, something which normal people, ordinary people cannot do. But this is also kind of a yajna purport.
This system of yoga for controlling the breathing process is called pranayama. And in the beginning, it is practiced in the Hatha Yoga system through different sitting postures. All of these processes are recommended for controlling the senses and for advancement in spiritual realization. This practice involves controlling the airs within the body so as to reverse the directions of their passage. The apan air goes downwards and the prana air goes up. The pranayama yogi practices breathing the opposite way until the currents are neutralized to the purak equilibrium. Offering the exhaled breath into the inhaled breath is called reka. Rechika. When both air currents are completely stopped, one is said to be in the Kumbhaka Yoga. By practice of Kumbhaka Yoga, one can increase the duration of life for perfection in spiritual realization. The intelligent yogi is interested in attaining perfection in one life without waiting for the next. For by practicing Kumbhaka Yoga, the yogis increase the duration of life by many, many years. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, automatically becomes the controller of the senses. His senses, being always engaged in the service of Krishna, have no chance of becoming otherwise engaged. So, at the end of life, he is naturally transferred to the transcendental plane of the Lord Krishna. Consequently, he makes no attempt to increase his longevity. he is at once raised to the platform of liberation, as stated in Bhagavad-Gita 14.26. Mamchayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samtetetan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord transcends the modes of material nature and is immediately elevated to the spiritual platform. A Krishna conscious person begins from the transcendental stage and he is constantly in that consciousness. Therefore, there is no falling down, and ultimately he enters into the abode of the Lord without delay. The the practice of reduced eating is automatically done when one eats only Krishna prasadam or food which is offered first to the Lord. Reducing the eating process is very helpful in the matter of sense control. And without sense control, there is no possibility of getting out of the material entanglement. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So we stop here. Any last question or comments? We'll continue in the next class from verse number 30. And in the next class, we'll complete the chapter also.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Prabhuji,
I have actually two questions.
Okay, one at a time, please. Vardhani Mataji.
Prabhuji, my first question is that we studied in chapter 4 starting that this is transcendental knowledge, and you told that knowledge about Krishna is the transcendental knowledge, and it will sharpen our intelligence. So, is that hearing and reading about Krishna, as it is highly recommended by Srila Prabhupada, will sharp our intelligence?
Yeah,
I hope you got the question.
yes.
Okay.
There are three types of knowledge: Sambandha Gyan, Abhideya Gyan, and Prayojan Gyan. So, Sambandha Gyan means knowing Krishna, knowing yourself, knowing your relationship with Krishna, knowing the material world, knowing the relationship of material world to Krishna. All that comes in the category of Sambandha Gyan. So, on the path of Krishna consciousness, the first step is to become very nicely situated in this Sambandha Gyan. Therefore, when we read or hear, that's what we are doing. We are getting fixed up in this knowledge about Krishna. It's a
Prabhuji, and
part,
my
it's
second question,
yeah.
yes. And Prabhuji's second question was that I have read in fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that Lord Krishna is telling that I eat through the mouth of Brahmanas, and Brahmanas are very dear to me. So, but yesterday, Prabhuji, we said that Lord is not like he's unattached to the four varnashrams, like it is not
Yeah,
that
he's
he loves.
unattached. He's unattached means what? He's unattached means he's not a part of that system. It doesn't mean that he's unattached, so he has nothing to do with these four categories of people. A devotee will also be in one of the varnas, but that person becomes dear to Krishna. Similarly, a brahmana who is a true brahmana, which means someone who is situated in absolute truth, that person is dear to Krishna. If one is a Shudra and fixed in absolute truth, that person also becomes dear to Krishna.
Okay.
So if one is not really a good Brahmana, that person will not be dear to Krishna. No? Brahmana means fixed in Brahman or situated in Brahman. That person is dear to Krishna.
Just because of devotion, he is dear,
Yeah,
not by
because
the
of,
varna.
no, not just by being a Brahman. That doesn't make much difference.
Prabhuji,
Yeah.
is chanting yoga.
Sorry?
The holy name is also yoga.
The holy name is also a Yagya,
Is
you are
also
saying?
yoga.
Yeah, that's why it's called Sankirtan Yagya, chanting of the holy name. Later on, Krishna will say Japa Yagya. Of the Yagya, I am Japa. And chanting the holy name is also a kind of yajna.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, so we stop here. See you next week. Hare Krishna. Shri